welcome to the third episode of the On Track Mind podcast. I'm joined by the amazing Lauren Trotter. You may know her as Dom Herbertson's better half. How are you doing, Lauren?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's been a stressful hour trying to organise tech, but we're here. So yeah, how did you get into racing? Has it been from a young age? Obviously, I know you, but for people who don't know you, you know, where did you start?
So I would have went to racing with my dad when I was really small, and then in later years would have went with my stepdad, sort of in my teens and my early 20s, and then once I got a car, you couldn't keep me away. I was at every meeting I could. Me and my cousin had put a tent in the back of my little Ford Fiesta and go around the country just going to race meetings and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's, especially if you can tell by Lauren's accent, she's from Northern Ireland, and obviously you've got all the road races there, you know, it's very accessible to you. And obviously you've continued going because even though you are a local gal, you now have Dom dragging you to every race meeting possible.
It's funny. People say that to him. Oh, you've dragged her to another one, but his response is always, "Oh, she'd be here if I wasn't, even if I wasn't."
Yeah,
Yeah,
as long as you're there for you, that's what
yeah,
matters. And for those of you who don't know Dom, if you don't know him, I don't understand because he is a character. He hosts on the Amazing Chasing the Racing podcast. Good friend of mine. Obviously, I've known you two for a while now. It was the London Bike Show last year, so almost
yeah.
a
So it'll
year
be
ago.
a year.
A year ago today, we would have met, which is crazy. It's been a crazy
Been a
year.
mad year.
Yeah. But what was the first race meeting you went to with Dom, like being together?
So we wouldn't have been together like properly at this stage, but we would have been sort of in the texting stages, um, and sort of would have been around him at the Ulster Grand Prix in 2018 and into the Manx of 2018 as well. As I say, just sort of watching from afar
Mm.
and chatting now and again. But the first one, the first proper one was probably the 2018 Sunflower Trophy races.
Yeah.
Which if you know Dom and you've listened to Chasing the Race and from the very beginning, episode 1, Missing Digits, was the was the race meeting that he lost his finger. So
Yeah.
we didn't get off to the greatest start when
It
it
was a
came
great
to
introduction.
yeah, great introduction to racing, getting fired into the deep end, but it's one of those things. These things happen, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was our first meeting.
Yeah. And if any of you guys have met Dom, you'll know that his favourite thing to do is just be like, go to shake your hand, and then it's the hand without his finger. You know, it's quite an intense moment. You sort of check and you're like, oh, okay.
And then he will quickly whip out his phone and show you the video of it getting cut
Yeah.
off.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
party
I
piece.
think I think I watched about 2 seconds of that and I was like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Not fun.
I've got
Um,
used to it now.
how many times did he show you it?
I've got it on my phone. Honestly, I must have seen it about 100 times in the last couple of years. It's got to the stage now we're in sync, so he'll start talking about it, and by the time he goes, "Oh, I must try and find that video," I already have it on my screen, and I'm like, "Here, just take
Okay,
it."
just take it.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, like you said, you've been to like other races with Dom, but when was your first time going to the TT with Dom? What was the first year?
So the first year that we were together and I was there at the same time was 19, but I was there with my friends. So I was just out pitboarding and watching the racing and yeah, enjoying it and just getting out and seeing the island and things. And then obviously we had a break in 2020 and 2021 with COVID, and
Yeah.
back in 2022, which was my first official TT with him. So it was the first one actually being in like Park Ferme on the road with him and just getting stuck in. But
How did you feel? Because obviously, like you said, you've grown up with the road races. You understand it. You know that things happen. You know that the realities of it. But how did it feel being with him before he went out, before he went into no man's land? How did you feel?
Um, it's one of those things. As you say, I've grown up with it. I'm used to it, but it is different when it's your partner racing. And
Mm.
at that stage, like we've been together, what, like 4 years nearly,
Mm.
um, like 3.5, 4 years. So, and we started we'd been living together as well for a year at that point. So that obviously changes things
Yeah.
drastically as well. Um, but you try not to think of those things. You try not to think of, what will we do if this happens, and um but yeah, no, I'll always remember standing, like the first time standing on Glencountry Road, and obviously I've stood on it before, like done the classic TT with him before. I've done the Manx with other, like some of my friends and stuff. I've helped
Yeah.
them in the Manx, and I've been in that position before, but there's something just different about the TT. There's
Mm.
you feel the pressure that's on his shoulders, not
Yeah.
from anyone, like not from sponsors, not from family, friends, fans, anyone, but from himself. Like
Yeah.
you feel that pressure, and it was really overwhelming experience the first time standing on Glencountry Road. Like I'll always remember it. Like he put his helmet on and sort of done our normal sort of pre-race rituals. Always, like obviously with his eye injury this year, takes sunglasses off, gives me a kiss, puts his helmet on, and away he goes.
Yeah.
And I looked at Chloe, and Chloe looked at me, and she just goes, "You all right?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so." And I was literally, I was crying under my sunglasses.
Mm.
And I'm not an emotional person. I'm not a crier. It was just proper overwhelming
Mm.
at that point.
Because there's that sort of thing of he's doing what he loves.
Mm.
It's excitement. You can't wait to see like how it's going to pan out. Like, for those of you who don't know Dom, like he is insanely talented. He was getting into the top 8 this year, like top 10. He was absolutely smashing it, and he's worked so hard. And it's so clear to see, like, if you kept up to date with Chasing the Racing, or especially the first time I'd heard of, it wasn't the first time I heard of Dom, but I watched the Religion of Sport documentary on YouTube. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll leave it linked below because it is phenomenal. And you see how hard he beats himself up about it, really hard. Like, so you've got that excitement of he's going to do well, but then you also have the anticipation of, well, when he comes in, what if it's not been great? You've got to weigh up the positives and negatives. And yes, there can be more negatives at the TT. It's a hard course. Like, there's a reason there's only a certain amount of people that excel. Um, but Dom, he's so chill. From the side that we see of him as fans, we see him as this very chill, happy-go-lucky, like excited. He's like an excitable puppy. Like, that's the only way I can describe him. But how, is he that relaxed? And do you feel you take on that sort of stress so he doesn't feel it?
Um, it's one of those things. When he goes out, you can feel the anticipation, and he's obviously, as you say, he's wanting to do well,
Mm.
and it is that, like, you're watching the timings and you're going, oh, he was in like fourth in the stock race at one point, and I was
Yeah,
like, what's going on? And he starts to drop down. You're thinking, oh, he's going to be gutted when he finds out that he was in fourth at one point, and he's
mm.
dropped down to seventh or whatever it was. And like, as you say, he done unbelievable this year. Like, he had he started 6 races, finished 5 with 5 top 10s. Like,
Mm.
we really, obviously apart from the senior, we couldn't have really asked for asked for a better TT.
Yeah,
It was great, and to be doing it the way we're doing it, like, for those that don't know, and as Verity says, don't know Dom, like, we do everything on a shoestring budget, out of the back
yeah,
of a van. It's old school, pop up awnings. We're in the bottom paddock. We don't have big race trucks, big budgets, a full team. We have me,
yeah.
him, and Piggy, and like family and friends and sponsors that want to help. And obviously we've got the Coutons and stuff as well, but focusing on like the big bike element, which is what he tends to focus on more so,
Mm.
and what more people sort of focus on around the TT. Like, we literally have us three. It's me trying on a weekend at BSB to learn as much as I can about Motec, to try and figure out what the hell
Yeah.
the bike's doing. Like, I'd never seen a screen with Motec on it before the Northwest. I sat down with a few lads, and they went through it, sort of crash courses with me and trying to sort that out. And it's these new bikes are an absolute minefield. Like whereas before, it was just, suspension by feel, and different tweaks by everything's by feel.
Yeah.
Now you can look at a graph and go, oh well, it's not doing what it should be doing there. We need to change something.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But everything's electronic. Even the gearing, you have to change the gearing in the ECU if you want to change
Yeah.
the gearing on the bike. So we're doing those little things. But yeah, no, it's a massive added pressure doing it that way. But at the same time, I think he thrives in a family environment, and
Yeah.
I think he'd do well in any big team.
Mm.
But yeah, it is difficult doing it the way we do things.
Yeah.
And I think that it almost adds to the pressure as well, because he wants to prove that we can do it as a team. We can beat the big teams. Like that bike that he was on this year was built by a big team in the paddock,
Yeah.
and he was beating their rider that was on a superbike on a stalker in the superbike race at the
Yeah.
TT. Like we were bouncing when he came in after that. Like it's as I say, it's one extreme to the other. Like
Yeah.
super twin race before we went out, we had a massive, just the bike blew up the day, like
Yeah.
2 days before in practice. Then but we had to get like wire and looms and everything, and the boys stayed up all night to fix it. We literally,
Mm.
only the race was delayed, we wouldn't have got out in the grid.
Yeah.
And although he didn't finish where he would have finished, we think, if it had been the good engine that blew up, we had the old engine in, if it had been the good engine and it had been the way everything should have been, he would have been up there. And it was the
Yeah.
disappointment of that, but also the thrill of the fact he actually finished the race
You
after
actually
all
do
the
it.
hard
Yeah.
work that everyone had put in.
Mm.
But yeah, he gets excited, but he gets himself down as well about things.
Mm.
But he doesn't know how good he is. He really
Yeah.
doesn't.
And you raised a really important point. It's that people see the results, they see the live streams, which I think was a massive help
Mm-hmm.
in 2022. The fact that the TT Plus came around, you see the front of it, but like you said, you're in the bottom paddock. It's just you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and it is hard to do. Seeing the amount of effort that you guys put in is admirable, and it's paying off massively. Like, I don't think, I think it would have been easier like 10 years ago for a privateer to do well, but now
Mm-hmm.
you look at the big boys at the front, you look at FHI, the gas monkey sponsor, there is a lot of money in those teams, and it's hard for anyone to compete with that, but you guys are proving that you can do it, and Dom's definitely doing that. So if anyone would like to sponsor Dom for 2024 or 2025, that'd be great. Or 2023 if you want to get on it quickly. But yeah, honestly, hats off to you guys, because the stress that you guys put yourself through, it pays off.
It does, and as you say, that like the budgets of the big teams, it's it's disgusting the amount of money that is floating around in racing, but is only focused on the top 5 teams or
Yeah.
6 teams. I don't even want to think about it. It makes me angry. But like I've seen a lot of people talking in the last week or so, obviously with the whole news with the MCUI and the financial problems in road racing in Northern Ireland at the
Yeah.
minute, and people who don't have a clue piping up on Facebook going, "Oh, these riders getting paid tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds to ride the bikes." There's very few people getting paid that amount of money to ride.
I think there's about not even 5% of riders getting paid.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if riders
Everyone
are
else.
getting paid, if they are getting paid, it's very, very obvious, because they are able to do like BSBs, they're able to do the road racing.
Mhm.
Like, the amount of top runners that have to pay to be in those seats.
Yeah, it's
It's
amazing. Like
mad.
I hear a voice or a name being batted around quite a lot, in the same sort of sometimes in the same sentences as Dom, and I'm like, we were at a little meetup thing at a cafe in Wales last week and or
Yes,
the week
yeah.
before. It was mint, by the way. Baffle House, shout out to them. They're great lads. Great coffee, even better tray bakes. But yeah, we were just chatting to people after the meet and greet, and these two fellas, really lovely lads, and they were just talking about racing and Dom and everything else, and they said a certain rider's name to me, and I said to them, I was like, he's not a privateer anymore. Like
Mm,
he doesn't have to pay for that ride. I says he gets paid. Someone pays for that ride
yeah,
on top of the multiple sponsors he already has,
yeah.
and he's like, yeah, and it shows, and he's on the best, arguably the best bikes, if not one of the best
Mm.
bikes in the paddock, and it's one of those that's
So you said that it was a very nerve-wracking experience being at the TT last year. Um, how did you sort of cope with it? Like, where did you watch from? Like, what were you doing with yourself in that time when he was gone? Because it's a long time, different races, they differentiate in lap, the amount of laps there is, but it's still a long time no matter how many laps they do. It's a 37-mile course, like it's long. So
yeah.
what do you do with yourself in that time?
As you mentioned earlier, TT Plus, it was massive for us
Mm,
this year. Like normally I'd just be like, oh, following I normally just get out of park Ferme, will try to, just sort of dander about and watch the live timings and listen to Manx radio.
yeah,
Um, that's my normal sort of routine. TT Plus was great this year because
yeah,
you can see them coming into different like milestones and stuff and different checkpoints, and
mm.
you got that visual that they were still there, they're still okay, and everything else. um but yeah, no, like the team's a massive help. Like obviously Peggy, everyone loves Peggy.
I love him
If you
so much.
don't know Peggy, get to know Peggy. And I'm
Get to
really
know.
really, yeah, really really happy to say that Peggy is with us for this year as well, so
Yeah.
through our entire
I'm going to
race
insert a
campaign.
picture of Piggy that I have because you
Yes,
will see how much of an icon he is.
he's just amazing. Piggy, me and Piggy spent most of our time going for ice cream.
I
That
love that photo
helped.
of you two.
Yeah, I'll send you that. But yeah, no, me and Piggy spent a lot of time going for ice cream. But no, there
It's
was
really fun.
a basically because of the old scoreboards are gone. Obviously this year or
Yeah,
last year. So we didn't really know what way like pit lane and stuff was going to work. Turned out they actually put like a big screen up with the TT Plus on, and there
yeah,
was like a number line round it. And then when they got to Croutnamona, as the old system was, the light come on at Croutnamona, the square lit up. So we knew that way. But
yeah,
I spent quite a lot of time just sort of, well, I'd be down there just to make sure that it was lining up properly with the live timings, to make
yeah.
sure that the light was coming on at the same time so that everything was accurate and
Mm,
everyone was ready to go. And then just like make sure that like once I'd seen the light, or once I'd seen he was at Ramsey or the bungalow, I'd just shout over to Neil and say, go and get the wheel, and bring that over. Because I didn't have a pit lane pass, so Neil had to run out and grab the wheel. But yeah, just trying to keep myself busy. And Chloe, who is James Coughton's other half, she's incredible girl. She's a
yeah.
massive help to me through all of that, and she's obviously been through everything with James, and yeah, she's incredible when it comes to that week. I'm sitting stressing my head off, and she's like, "It's fine, just we'll watch this
Just
and we'll sit."
breathe.
Yeah, just breathe.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, they like love the Countons to bits. Like they're great. They're always a
yeah.
massive help as well.
Mm. So, for those of you who don't know, the 2022 TT, the senior race for Dom didn't go as expected. It was on the last lap, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
unfortunately came off. He made contact with the wall. He was all right. The bike was maybe not. Because I remember it. I was out seeing some people and I was trying to watch the TT Plus, and then I couldn't keep up and everything because there was so much going on. I remember I just got a call from my dad and being saying, Dom's off. for me, my heart just sank. I was so nervous. I felt I wasn't even there. When you had that notification to say Dom's off or
Mhm.
something's wrong with Dom, I know there's normally a guy that comes over and sort of tells you.
It was a little bit
Doesn't
strange, to be honest. As I said, I was sort of at the return lane across in the pits, and then obviously he'd been through for the last pit stop, so I thought, I'll just, I'll go out of Park Fermi and go and dander around and,
Yeah.
as I was saying, watch live timings and stuff. And I was watching the live timings, and he came through Glen Helen, which we will talk about later. But he came through Glen Helen, and then I think it was Jamie had reached Ballaugh and he hadn't. And then I was like, right, well, he should be sort of just after Jamie, like he shouldn't be too far behind Jamie. And then Crowe came through, and I was like, there's something not right here, because he was a good bit
Yeah.
in front of Crowe on the road at this point.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes.
something's not right. So I was like, I looked at his mum and his, or it wasn't not his mum, his sister. I looked at his sister and went, something not right. So I went up to the office, went in, spoke to them. They couldn't tell me anything.
Mm.
So they're like, right, give us a minute. We'll radio through and we'll see, because I said to them, like, look, he was last at Glen Helen. He hasn't reached Ballaugh. Is there any information? Blah, blah, blah. They literally have a retirement office. 5 minutes, still couldn't tell me anything. I was like, shit. And then eventually they got through to someone, and all they said was, off at Glen Helen, conscious and talking. And I was like, right. So I just walked down the steps, calm as could be, looked over. So there's like a holding sort of bay in front of scrutineering. And then there's like the walkway up to Park
Yeah.
Fermi, and I was walking down the other side of it. And Neil looked across at me. He was obviously in our pit crew. Neil looked across at me and was like, airlifted to Nobles. And I was like, shit. So the paddock, as most of you will probably know, is a terrible place for rumours. So I tried to be as
Yeah.
nonchalant and calm as possible. Sort of power walked down the paddock, got as far as the toilet block at the bottom until I hit the grass, and I just ran because I knew his dad was sitting in the caravan. And I was like, shit.
Mm.
Popped my head in the door and he just looked at me. I was like, well, and I was like, Airmed to Nobles. And he was like, right, okay. He goes, do you know how to get there? Because obviously most of the roads on the island are closed, but there are
Yeah.
certain ways you can get in round to get to Nobles. And I was like, honestly, Mark,
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't a clue how to get there. I says, I just get lost. And he was like, right, give me 2 seconds. He chucked on his gloves and his helmet, and away we went on our little groms down to the hospital. We actually beat him to the hospital. Thankfully, wasn't too bad, but it's that the initial delivery. Obviously, they have to be as sort of not. It's hard to explain. They have to be sort of. They can't just give you all the information because they don't know the
No.
information. All they know is he's
No.
came off.
Yeah.
But yeah, broken shoulder blade and pelvis. Thankfully, both relatively stable, so he was able to leave the
Mm.
hospital that day.
Yeah.
We got on the boat that night, and that was that. But as I was saying about Glen Helen, so so it turns out that although he'd reached Glen Helen, he'd actually slid through. He'd slid through the transponder point.
Yeah.
So what happened is he'd come into Glen Helen, tipped in, the wind had pushed him wide, and he'd sort of thought, what, I can still make this.
Yeah.
He says now that if he rolled off and sort of settled it a little bit more, he would have made it round. But
Yeah.
hindsight's a great thing. He sort of was like, right, I can make this. Ended up clipping his arm on the wall, and there's actually a slice
Yeah.
through the whole way through his leathers, on his right arm, and just took his hand off, and that was it. But thankfully, thankfully, as he says, these are not my words. Thankfully, as he says, the bike followed him in, so the bike wasn't too bad. Like we
Yeah.
had, obviously, the whole fairings were wrecked. Just your usual like clip-ons, foot pegs.
Yeah.
The forks were probably the worst bit. They were just haywire. They were completely
Yeah.
bent. And then the dash was a little bit damaged. Thankfully, the fairings took most of the hit for the dash, but
Yeah.
we managed to get that all sorted
Mm.
relatively okay.
Yeah. And obviously, again, for those of you who don't know, Dom had a incident at work. How he laughed through telling that story. So, for those of you who don't know, Dom had an incident at work where he, in his words, tried to eat a chainsaw. So obviously that was a bit of a hit. You know, we were sort of thinking, shit, like there are races coming up. How the hell, like, what is going to happen? But you got there.
Yeah, just about.
And then he throws himself at the scenery. No,
yeah, I know. That was a nice phone call to get on a Thursday evening. Was it a Thursday evening, 6:05? My manager had just signed off for the day, so I couldn't even tell her I wasn't coming in the next day. But
oh no.
could you believe I'm looking at the date now? It's almost a year ago. It'll be a year on the 24th of Feb. Yeah, so
honestly, when I heard about that, I was like, okay.
Yeah. So for those that don't know or haven't listened to the podcast where Dom talks about it, he was at work and was cutting I don't know what kind of tray it was, some sort of tray. But basically
It had metal in it.
back in the day they used to use metal stakes as
Yeah.
to hold like saplings up.
Yeah.
Whereas now they use wood, which is sensible.
It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, so the stake had embedded in the tray. And he says like he's done the same cut tens of thousands of times in his career.
Yeah.
Like he's been on a chainsaw since he was like 14.
But he knows what he's doing, but this one
just caught him out. So just as the chainsaw kissed the tray, the metal was right on the surface and it's just bounced back, hit him in the eye. It broke bottom of his eye socket into 3 bits. He had a notch out of the top of his eye socket. He had a full like split like through his eyelid, like his eye was out. And he had a crease fracture at the back of his skull as well, just from like the sort of like a whiplash impact. Bless him. He went through obviously the first surgery. First surgery to sew it all back together, that went wrong. First skin graft, that also went wrong. Second skin graft has gone wrong again. But they've been injecting him with steroids into the scar tissue to try and break it down. So she's been to an appointment last week and no more surgery now until September. So we've got a bit of peace for the season. His eye is working a hell of a lot better than it was last year, because honestly the pain he was going through last year, like TT, he was coming in and sleeping like I've never seen him sleep so much. But apparently it's because as humans we're binocular, and he was trying to take all the information in through one eye, because the other one was just so blurry. But no, thankfully he seems to be on the mend, and we're in a hell of a lot better position than we were this time. Well, not this time last year, but sort of start of season last year. But the delights. He just wants to, honestly, he just tries to do anything he can to hurt himself or kill himself, honestly. Tree surgeon by trade, road racer, bloody everything else.
Yeah, sometimes you question it. It's like, you're really not trying to help yourself here, are you, man?
Over COVID, tried to backflip a pit bike. He just likes
you
it.
You could make a series of everything he tried to do.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be fine? You'd win the 250 quid.
I know, make a fortune.
But obviously you said, you've grown up in the industry, and what I'm focusing on at the moment on Track Mind is how women's experience in the industry, what they've experienced, It's no secret that you said before, the paddock is a place for rumours, whether that is whether someone's injured or whether it is someone dating someone, or there's always something going on for someone to talk about. How have you found being a woman and being involved in the industry so close for so long? Like, how have you, navigated your way through it? Because it's not always pleasant for us.
Yeah, thankfully I'm not in the public eye enough or important enough for rumors to be made about me, which is great in my opinion. Yeah. To be honest, I've always been a little bit one of the lads.
Yeah.
Like I done engineering and construction in college. I was in a class that was all boys, bar me and one other girl.
Yeah.
I've grown up with that. I've grown up with a brother, grown up with like uncles like that weren't like or maybe like 15, 20 years older than me, so they're not like
There's not a
I've literally
massive gap.
yeah. And the thing is, like, my stepdad's got an engineering business, so like I'm used to the lads crack and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think that even if some things have been said to me, I probably haven't taken them
Mm,
offensively because I'm just
yeah.
used to that banter.
And I think you need to do that. You know,
If you were
if
offended
you
by
want,
everything, you wouldn't get very far,
you're not
especially
going
as
to
you say in this
survive.
industry. No,
You're not going to survive.
now recently, I will admit I faced a little bit of like it's more the looks because Dom will say, "Oh, this is Lauren. She's my crew chief or my data technician," because essentially I am at this point.
Yeah.
I know. I'm only starting out in it, and there's a lot to it, and I don't. I'm literally a drop in the water at the minute of what I need to learn, but I'm trying and you know I don't mind asking for people's help, and like if I can just download the data off the bike and go to someone and say, look, you see this here, like, you know, what way would you interpret that and
Mm,
things like that. But I've noticed that like a lot of people will still snigger or they'll, you
mm,
know, they'll just kind of give like a like shut up kind of look.
yeah.
And it's kind of it started to get I noticed it starting to get to me whenever I started going like no I'm not, like, you know, just started like saying no you know,
Yeah.
like I'm hardly that, you know,
Yeah.
just trying to like bring it back down to like,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those. It's I don't think men have faith in the fact that women can actually do things in this industry, and it's amazing. Like there's like engineering is becoming such a massive thing now. Like
Yeah.
women are getting involved in it so much more. Like
Massively.
there's a girl I went to didn't go to primary school with her, but she was in my primary school. She was a couple of years younger. She got headhunted to work for I think it was Dyson. She got headhunted to work for them. Like
Wow.
yeah, like, and she was only like 20 at the time. Like unbelievable.
Jesus.
Made like yeah, it's things like that. Like it's amazing seeing it happen, and there's more and
Mm,
more people now, and like with Feiho starting a race team, it's
yes.
starting like she's a great figure to have in the paddock because it shows girls that they can do that. And like there's girls in the bottom paddock where like especially the Irish mates, they're working on their own bikes, you know, they're
Yeah.
doing everything themselves.
Yeah.
Like there's like I do, it's difficult because I don't want to start missing people out, but like there's Melissa Kennedy, she's from literally 5 minutes down the road from me at home.
Yeah.
um there's Yvonne Montgomery, who is an inspiration to anybody. Like she
Yeah.
honestly, she's just great. Um, who else? Like Veronica. I'm not gonna insult her by trying to pronounce her surname. Like she does all her stuff, and
Mm,
Indy, her boyfriend, like she does like loads of stuff on his bikes and stuff as well. And like
yeah.
Like I was like Sarah Anderson, previously Sarah Boys, whenever she raced, but she's going to be getting, I think she's looking to get back into it this year, which is exciting
Mm,
to see. But she's the
yeah.
same, like she just gets cracked on, gets stuck in with her own stuff, and it's
Yeah.
great to see that women are coming through in the industry, even if it's just for themselves. Um, it's just lovely to see, really
Yeah.
lovely to see.
Yeah. And I think it gives like the likes of you and me, it's like obviously we are involved in parts of racing, but not racing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard for us to be taken seriously.
Massively, yeah.
Um, the amount of things that have been said to me. One of them by Dom.
Oh, don't even pass remarks on anything he says.
This is the second time I've had to say this on Chat Mind. I don't have an OnlyFans. Thank you, Dom. But I think it is that, and I think it's definitely getting better. Like you said, there's more girls getting involved, and I think if it wasn't for, you know, Fei Ho, it's no secret. There's a lot of money being put into that team.
Yeah,
She's got a
huge
lot
amount
to
of money.
spend, and I think if it wasn't for big names like her, yes, there is amazing girls doing their own individual thing, but it's they don't always get the recognition because they don't have the money, and it
Mhm.
harps back to the privateer side. And you're right, it's the big names like Faye Ho that are bringing it forward.
Mhm.
I
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think unfortunately we're in that age of sort of sex sells still. Obviously it's been that way for a long time, but it's
Yeah,
like sometimes I think some of the like I've noticed this. I would have followed a lot of like bike girls on Instagram like for the last number of years
yeah,
because they were girls who rode big bikes, and
yeah,
I thought it was great and really cool and everything else. And as the times have started to change, COVID hit, and a lot of them are starting OnlyFans accounts now and putting up like I have had to unfollow, and numerous amounts of them just because I'm sick of seeing their behinds like bent over bike. I'm
yeah.
like, get out of the way. I want to see the bike, not you, Pat. Go on, shoot. But I think, but it's sad to say that, and it's each their own. Everybody's got their own thing, and if you want to do that, it's completely up to you. And I wouldn't judge anyone for it. But
No,
I think
most of the
sometimes,
girls doing it smash it.
oh god, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
thing. But at the same time, I think sometimes we all get tarred with the same brush because there is a certain number of people who choose to do that with their lives and go down that route. But yeah, I'd neither. I do
mm,
not have the
yeah.
patience or the
Um,
body to be doing that. So not for me.
no. And I don't know whether this will get cut, but I think you're definitely right with getting tied with the same brush. There are individuals, and you don't even know who they are sometimes,
Mhm,
but they're there for one sole reason.
mhm,
Maybe it is to go to a motorhome and do all that.
mhm,
Each their own. You can live your life, enjoy it. But I think we need to break down the fact that not everyone's like that. The amount of times, I said it to Sophie McGinn, I said, the amount of times that I'm just here for the bikes. I don't want to see all that. I don't want to do all that.
mhm.
I want to enjoy it. And I think
Yeah.
I think 2022 was a big turning point for me personally, that people were like, okay, no, you're actually serious about
Mhm.
this. And
Yeah.
it's crazy that it took it that long.
Yeah. Well, funny you say that. Hang on. I fell out with a certain racer not well, probably 3 years ago. Um, it was what is it? What was the exact words? Turned around to me and goes, "Oh, he's won one now. I suppose that makes you a racer chaser." And I was like, "You know what you do? Fuck off." I speak to that person now, but it took me a long time to get away from that. I was so annoyed.
But obviously, with racing, especially, with road racing, there was a huge amount of losses in 2022. Like some of the most shocking ones we've seen at the TT this year. But unfortunately, one that hit very close to home for us was the absolutely phenomenal Chrissy Rouse. And obviously, for those of you, how you don't know, but Dom and Chrissy were absolutely inseparable. They had Chasing the Racing together, and he is definitely still with us. There's no way that we haven't lost him. He is with us. But after after Chrissy passing, how did that change your mindset on what you wanted Dom to do? Did you ever think, oh, I don't know if it's right for you? Like, how did you find that period afterwards?
Um, it's one of those. I think we had obviously, as you say, I've grown up with it. I've seen multiple losses over the years.
Mm.
Like 2018 was a hard year. Like we lost Dan Neen, James Cowton, and
Yeah.
William Dunlop within the space of like a month of each other, and that was difficult. And that was whenever sort of
Yeah.
I was coming into the relationship with Dom just after that sort of that
Mm.
year. So the sport was already everyone was already feeling it, and I think when it hits so close to home like it has this year, like we lost another friend, Mark Perslow, at the TT.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
like uh, it's one of those things. I love racing, and I know Dom loves racing, and I would never do anything that would stop him from doing what he loved. Like, I just couldn't be that person. I honestly, I
Mhm.
couldn't. Um, I seen how miserable he was in 2020 and 2021 when there was nothing going on,
Yeah.
and how much he missed it and everything else. And obviously with Chrissy, it's hit a lot closer to home. And like, as you say, he's still here. Like,
Yeah.
I had a calendar hanging up on the side of the cabinet in the kitchen. The hook had been up for about a year. No, it's not. No, maybe about 6 months. The hook had been up. Never had a command hook fail on me in my life. Sitting in the living room last week, heard a bang, walked in. Chrissy's calendar was lying in the middle of the kitchen floor. Um, so I think he's just out to bloody haunt me.
Yeah.
Um,
He is.
but
He is
yeah, he's just
showing
pick.
himself at the
Yeah,
moment.
I just laugh. I text Grace and I'm like, he's just picking on me, for God's sake. I was like, why is it me? But yeah, no, I love Chrissy to bits, still do.
Mm, yeah.
He was a part of my life for 4 years. Not obviously not as much as Dom's, but like they've done the
Mm,
podcast together for nearly 4 years, and I was
yeah.
there through most of them, sitting in the back of the trailer trying not to make a noise. And we spend so many weekends together. I'm so grateful that we had the memories from the Irish tour at the start of 2022, and like,
Yeah.
so many memories. All he done was take the piss out of me that week. He had
Why am
he
I not
was
shocked?
no, such a mild mannered, polite, lovely boy with the darkest sense of humor that nobody really got to
You wouldn't.
see. You wouldn't think it.
You
Well,
wouldn't
you wouldn't.
expect it.
Yeah, no, Chrissy
You
has the
really wouldn't.
darkest sense of humor. Um, Honestly, it was just unbelievable. But yeah, no, it's been a massive loss. And I seen that China, Chrissy's other half, was up here at the weekend, spending some time with Chrissy's family, which was lovely to see. So, um, it's sort of the 1 year
Yeah.
anniversary of us meeting China as well. This year,
Yes.
or
Yes.
this week. Sorry, it's been a massive loss. But Chrissy, Chrissy and Dom have had those conversations that they've been on the road together for thousands of miles,
Mm,
speaking about everything. And they've spoken about the what ifs and everything else,
yeah.
and neither of them would want each other to stop.
Yeah.
Dom's only regret is the fact that he didn't get Chrissy to drink a pint of Guinness, because Dom always said that if he went before his time, Chrissy had to drink a pint of Guinness. Um, and he never
Dom's
got
just gonna have to
that.
drink two from now on. Every time he has one, he's gonna have to have a second one.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously, well, for those that don't know, Chrissy didn't drink. He was completely teetotal,
He was
but
so on
still
it.
the life of the
Yeah.
bloody party. I have never met someone I envied so much. I have to be absolutely I have to be like 6 drinks in to even speak to people. I'm that awkward on a night out. Chrissy was in the middle of the
Us
dance
two on a
floor,
us two on our night out.
sober.
Prove that. But
Yeah.
it's like I'll see if I can get the video of Chrissy doing
Oh,
he
the
blast from the
yeah.
head without touching it with his hands.
Yeah, he done that in like a 5-star like restaurant thing in London this time last year, and
Yeah.
everyone was kind of looking at him going, what in the name of God is this boy doing? And then by the end of it, he had the whole place clapping for him. Like,
Cheering for him.
unbelievable. What a boy. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, never. I would never stop him doing what he loves. It's just not something not something I'd do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah, and
some
I
sort of
think
comfort as well of someone going out doing something that they loved. It's better
yes,
than
yeah.
lying sick for years on end and dying at the end of it.
Mm.
It's something to show for yeah, the short life that he had. He's got so much to show for it. So
Yeah, those 26 years were bloody impactful.
mhm.
And I've been very open on it on the Instagram page with on Track Mind. If it wasn't for Dom and Chrissy, and I've said I was fortunate to be able to tell Dom, I wouldn't do it without them, because it was them two egging me on at the XL show this time last year. They're like, just go for it.
Mhm.
So I'm completely indebted to those two, especially Chrissy. But
Yeah,
no,
I know what he's like. He would have pushed anyone to do something that they had their heart set on.
yeah, and I think it's amazing that I think a lot of people would have seen that and they would have had second thoughts about continuing racing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's so incredible that Dom carries on and will continue to carry on because it's what they both love. Like it's such an inspiration to see that life carries on
Mm-hmm.
for other people.
Yeah.
And I think Dom's made that very clear that it's for Chrissy.
Mm-hmm. Everything he does now is for Chrissy.
Yeah.
There will be. I'm not going to let anything slip because I don't know what he said and what he hasn't said. But keep an eye on him in the F900 Cup at BSB this year. There will be some little tributes to Chrissy. On that. So
I honestly cannot wait to see Dom at the F900. It's going to be mint. Like he's just going to smash it. And
yeah, I know if there's the pressure's on. Everyone's been saying that the pressure is
how
well
are
and
you
truly on.
feeling? How are you
Stressed,
feeling about it?
stressed because it's only me, him, and Peggy again.
I did speak to him the other day, and I was like, if you need help, shout, and I'll be there.
Yeah.
So Lauren, if you need help because he's shit twisted his phone, message me. I'll be there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, really excited. It's our first proper go at British. So we've done a few rounds here and there, but it's the first proper go. So proper excited.
Yeah.
We've got a World Superbike round as well, which I am buzzing about. So yeah, they're doing like obviously
So exciting.
They're like a little satellite round in World Superbikes as well. So yeah, buzzing. Unfortunately, I don't get to get out of the country and get a suntan because it's Donington
Honestly,
Park.
we'll book a holiday. It's fine. We'll find time. If there's like a 2-week gap, we'll go somewhere.
Have you seen my calendar? That's a no.
Right. Before Christmas, we'll go.
November, I am free.
And one thing I always ask my guests on Track Mind is if there's any advice they would give anyone. And for you, what advice would you give a new partner coming in? So someone who's just got into a relationship with a racer. What advice would you give them going into the stress that is the crazy world of motorcycle racing?
Just be open-minded to things. Speak to people in the paddock. There's far too many girls in the paddock that I don't know whether they're shy or whether they're just, some of them think they're too good to speak to other people, but don't be scared to come and talk to the other girls. Like I've noticed, like I know especially the ones in the bottom paddock, like we're all like a big family. Like the boys are all a family, but we all stand with each other and keep each other's chins up when things aren't good and make friends. I know it's difficult. I'm the worst person for it. Like I find it really difficult to make friends, but try, just speak to people. Don't let the nerves get to you, and don't let them know that you're nervous. You standing on the start line shaking like a shitting dog is not helping anybody. It's not helping you, and it's putting the shits up them as well that you're nervous. They can sense they can sense your nerves, and it's going to put them off. It's one of those, and I think it's one of those things. Like everyone's there to help each other. And like I'll never forget when Ryan Whitehall had his crash at Armoy. His lovely girlfriend, bless her, she didn't know where to go, she didn't know what to do. They were there on their own, it was just them two and a mechanic, and that was it. And they come over from the Isle of Wight and they didn't know, and everyone rallied round her. And it's one of those things, the paddock community will help anyone who asks for it, but don't be scared to ask for help as well. Get involved, get stuck in, even if it's tire warmers and stands. Don't just get involved. And don't wear white to race meetings because it'll not be white after it.
Don't wear white trainers, trust me. Any shoes you value, don't wear them.
Doc Martens are the only job, especially at a road race meeting.
Yeah.
Or wellies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll leave the link to the GoFundMe for the Northern Irish road racing, because we need to keep that going. There's no doubt about it. You know, it needs to carry on. And I'll leave a link to yours and Dom's socials. Because Dom has, for those of you who don't know, he had the 130 Club a few years ago, and he started that back up. So if you want to help him out this coming year, because it will be an intense year for all of us.
Yeah. So the bomb squad is
Bomb Squad. I
yeah.
love that name.
The bomb squad has started back up again. It's I don't actually know the official launch date. It's currently open to 130 Club members, which is his supporters club for the last 2 years. So it will be opening shortly to the general public.
Yeah.
So,
and when it is open, I'll keep you all up to date on the Instagram. So make sure you're following at on.trackmind. And yeah, Lauren, thank you so much for your time.
you're very,
We
very
had
welcome.
some technical difficulties, but we got here.
I think we've about 2 hours worth of us going, what is going on?
What is going on? I should have recorded that. That would have
Honestly,
made some great
I
content.
know. It's more the fact that we spent an hour yesterday and all I had to do was flick a switch on the side of the laptop. Oh well, we know for next time.
So yeah, thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure you keep up to date with everything on Track Mind, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.